Last week we brought you the story of an unusual spike in the number of babies in the Northern Rivers district born with a severe birth defect known as gastroschisis, where the intestines and other organs grow outside a baby's body while in the womb. The apparent jump in numbers led to fears of a cluster in the area and concern that the increase might be linked to certain pesticides and herbicides used in the local farming industry. But New South Wales Health this week asserted there was no cause for concern. The increase is just a random result. With no plans for any further investigation, questions still remain, and there's also new health concerns over a possible link between chemicals and neurological disease in New South Wales and beyond. Caro Meldrum-Hanna reports.
Yeah, hello.
It's hard to believe 10 months ago, Mia Rose was fighting for her life. She was born with gastroschisis, a rare birth defect where a baby's intestines and other organs grow outside of its body through a hole in the abdominal wall. 10% of children born with this condition do not survive.
It was hard. It was really hard to sit there and watch Mia. Sorry. It was hard to watch her vomiting every 2 hours.
You saying hello? Hello?
Her bowel turned right around and pushed her appendix up on the other side. It was horrible just watching her do it and not be able to do anything to help her.
And you were told that it was rare?
It was very rare, yep. 1 in 5 to 10,000 babies, I think it was.
But you certainly hadn't heard of other cases in the Northern Rivers so close to you?
Not at all, not at all.
But baby Mia and her parents were not alone.
All of the nurses and the hospital staff would anecdotally tell us that, the Northern Rivers seems like a hot spot, like from the Gold Coast down.
11 months ago, Jackie McSkimming and Matt Ostilla's son, Olive, was born with gastroschisis. So was Angela Summers' daughter, Indy, now 5 months old.
House here for like 4.5 years.
And Elwyn Pateson's 2-year-old daughter, Obelia.
Where are we going to go on the train?
They are all part of a group of at least 7 babies in the Northern Rivers born with gastroschisis in the past 3 years alone.
We were told there was no reasons for this, and then all of a sudden there's all these babies within a 35-kilometre, range with the same problems.
The apparent increase prompted an investigation by New South Wales Health in March to figure out if the numbers constituted a cluster. At the time, New South Wales Health told several families it would take up to a year to investigate. But in a private meeting last Friday, New South Wales Health decided the spike in numbers was nothing more than a random aggregation of cases.
The most likely explanation for this is that what we're seeing is an evening out over time of this rare condition in this community.
Despite not even speaking with all of the mothers, and despite initially telling 7:30 there were only 15 cases of gastroschisis in the area in the past 10 years, New South Wales Health says their investigation was thorough.
We identified 26 cases between 2000 and 2010.
26 over the 11 years. What incidents does that relate to then?
Over the whole of the North Coast. Look, those numbers are in the report. I don't have those numbers in my head.
But you would know the incidents because you'd be able to determine by using the figures of live births for each year.
And we've done those calculations and they're in the report.
What is the incidence?
Well, the report is imminent for release.
New South Wales Health would not provide us with a copy of their final report. But based on birth data from the ABS, the incidence of gastroschisis in northern New South Wales is nothing short of staggering. Around 1 for every 850 live births. That's 4 times the state average. As far as New South Wales Health goes, it's certainly not a cluster.
The term cluster is a label for a random aggregation of events.
So a random aggregation of events is a cluster?
The label itself has no meaning. I think it has emotive tones to it. Now, I don't believe it's useful or helpful for the parents who've had these babies and who are looking for answers to put in their minds or reinforce their perceptions that there might be something in their environment that's harming them. This is a condition that's very rare. And
there may be something in the environment that's harming them. How can you rule that out, can you?
I have no evidence to support that, and we have no leads to follow to examine that at this stage.
New South Wales Health may not have any leads, but others in the Northern Rivers do. Many are wondering if these mothers could have been exposed to some of the herbicides and pesticides sprayed in the Northern Rivers, home to rich agricultural land and a diverse farming industry.
We did look into the literature around atrazine and gastroschisis, but they're not the sorts of studies that are able to indicate a causal link.
Australia's regulatory body for chemicals, the Australian Pesticides and Veterinary Medicines Authority, or the APVMA, also rejects the science linking herbicides and pesticides to the development of gastroschisis and other health problems. Dr. Simon Cubitt is an environmental historian and spokesman for the APVMA.
The APVMA's role is to make decisions about which chemicals can be used in Australia and under what conditions. And then our partners in the States, their responsibility is to make sure that the chemicals are used according to their label instructions. And it's a system that's worked very well.
Or has it?
Oh, there it goes. Way up in the air.
730 has obtained this home video, filmed last year from a property in the heart of the Northern Rivers.
And as you can see, we're on Immigrant Creek Dam.
It shows a macadamia farmer spraying what the neighbours believe to be endosulfan, a pesticide deauthorised in numerous countries around the world, but still approved for use in Australia for the next 2 years. The label says it's not meant to be sprayed in periods of high wind or directly onto surface water. Endosulfan has been detected in the water catchment area and in residential water tanks in the Northern Rivers.
Look, I'm concerned about the pesticides and the potential cumulative long-term effects on our children.
The concerns of many residents were on show at a community meeting in Lennox Head, organised by a local doctor in October.
Dementia was 3 times more likely in people with pesticide exposure compared to those who had not had that exposure. And they found that Parkinson's disease was 5 times more common.
Listening in the audience was Joe Immig, an environmental scientist and head of the National Toxics Network.
I was quite surprised to meet a group who came along because they all suffer from Parkinson's disease, some of them with early onset Parkinson's disease and Parkinson's that's not related to genetic factors.
Tamsin Jackson is part of that group. She lives on this property in Alstonville, surrounded by macadamia farms. 3 years ago, on the day before her 40th birthday party, Tamsin Jackson was diagnosed with early-onset idiopathic Parkinson's disease, a progressive, degenerative and incurable neurological disease.
When I was first diagnosed, I went to a support group, I suppose you'd call it, and there were 20 newly diagnosed people, and 3/4 of that group were from this area, like from the same town, same rural area, so yeah.
The Northern Rivers?
Yeah, all from the Northern Rivers, but all from, the Alstonville area. So on research and talking to lots of people, there does seem to be a link possibly for rural areas and pesticides and herbicides.
Her doctor agrees. Brisbane neurologist Dr. Peter Silburn has been researching the links between Parkinson's disease and pesticide and herbicide exposure. He says the risk of developing Parkinson's is twofold in rural communities compared to city areas.
Well, the difference in exposure, really it's related to the different types of exposure that you have and the chronicity of it. But I suspect, and we have suspected a long time, that it's the different types of exposure and whether these groups of chemicals, not one individual per se chemical, but whether the groups of chemicals can increase that risk. And that's what the data's pointing to.
Dr. Silburn's research is backed up by international science. According to the Parkinson's Institute in California, to date there are more than 50 studies worldwide linking exposure to herbicides and pesticides to an increased risk of developing Parkinson's disease. Last month, a US study found that higher concentrations of 4 particular pesticides in groundwaters are significantly associated with higher levels of Parkinson's disease. Australia's regulator relies on the weight of international science to make its regulatory decisions, but the spokesman for the APVMA doesn't know if anyone in his office is aware of the latest study.
I don't know the study to which you're referring. I'm happy to come back to you when we've identified the study to which you're referring and to let you know what our perspective is.
Meanwhile, 730 has been told there may be a possible cluster of neurological disease much closer to home. I understand in one particular area in Queensland there's 3 women in one street who've all been recently diagnosed with Parkinson's. They're surrounded by, I think, banana plantations.
Yeah, I think that...
or is that just chance?
I think that certainly needs to be pursued, and we're actually pursuing that with some rigour, actually. There's something in this, and we have to have a go. You can't have a common condition like this with a twofold risk and not explore it, particularly in the absence of a cure.
But without government funding to support research and data collection, the identification of possible clusters across Australia simply can't be done.
I think it's wrong for us not to pursue it. You've got to have a social conscience in this, and that's the issue.
I'm doing very well. How do you do?
Very well too.
Very well too.
As far as New South Wales Health is concerned, there's no further issue to investigate in the Northern Rivers. And any hopes these families held of getting answers have been dashed. Well, is it the end of the matter as far as New South Wales Health goes?
Well, we'll continue to watch this. We'd like to get some reassurance for ourselves and for these families that our conclusion at this time is correct.